Shabbat Yom, brothers and sisters, Hebrews in Jamaica, the Caribbeans, the West, to the four corners of the earth, scattered greetings. This is our lesson. We're going to title it Islam and their Pagan connection. Islam and their Pagan connection, brothers and sisters. But, when I touch on these topics, right, I like to balance the situation, brothers and sisters, right? I don't want to talk about Islam, I also talk about Christianity, so we get a balance because both of them are, pagan connections, brothers and sisters. It has nothing to do with so-called black people who are descendants of Hebrew slaves, right? Descendants of Asian Israel, right, brothers and sisters? So, I want to quote a very intelligent man by the name of Dr. Kadamawi Knife. Dr. Kadamawi Knife, I heard this quote from him a couple of days ago on a live stream, UIC live stream, and it really stuck to me, so I'd like to, share it with you guys. He states, right, Dr. Knife states that enslaved minds cannot serve free people. Enslaved minds cannot serve free people. Think about it, brothers and sisters. Let that sink in. He's talking about the colonial mindset of our people and the sick obsession towards massa, unhealthy obsession towards massa. That's what they call Stockholm Syndrome, brothers and sisters, right? You can't see yourself without attaching yourself to your oppressor. You can't see yourself succeed as a people without your oppressor. And this is what Dr. Knife is saying: enslaved mind, your mind is enslaved. Bob said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery, none but ourselves can free our minds. Right? And how we going to free our minds is through education, right? Of word, but very importantly, the scriptures. Educate yourself in the scriptures so you could know who you are in the scriptures as royal people of the house of Royal Israel, right? So it's very profound, brothers and sisters, right? Enslaved minds cannot serve free people. So the free people are free thinkers, right? Who don't take the bull from corrupt politicians and corrupt leaders, right? We do our own research and, elevate our mind, liberate our minds, right? So we gotta liberate our minds through the scriptures and the keeping of the commandments so the Most High can open your mind spiritually and physically. Right, brothers and sisters? So let's get into the Shabbat lesson. Look at the screen, brothers and sisters, right? Right, take a look at the screen, brothers and sisters, right? We're gonna take before I get into the lesson, I like to get my scriptures and put things in context. Right? So Shemot Exodus 20:1 to 4 from the Sefer Bible, right? And Elohim spake all these words, saying, I am Yahuwah thy Elohim, which have brought thee out of the land of Mizraim, Egypt, Mizraim, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other Elohims before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Isaiah 45:5, right? I am Yahuwah, and there is none else. There is no Elohim beside me. I girded thee, though thou hast not known me. So right out about the Most High declaring this: I alone is Elohim. I am Yahuwah, and there is none else. There is no Elohim beside me. I girded thee, though thou hast not known me. Right? Right? Isaiah 65:11, right? From the Sefer Bible. But you are those who forsake Yahuwah, who forget my holy mountain, who prepare a table for Gad. It's funny, the term Gad, so-called Jamaicans use that term to call the Prime Minister in Jamaica Bro Gad, right? And you see, they're not knowing that they're calling him false god, or some type of pagan deity, right? Because scripture mentioned about God, just a side note, right? And who furnish a drink offering to many. Therefore I will number you for the sword, and you shall all bow down to the slaughter, because when I called, you did not answer. When I spoke, you did not hear, but did evil before my eyes, and choose that in which I do not delight. Right? So you choose evil over good. You choose idols over the living Elohim. That's why the Most High number you for the sword. Right? Right, brothers and sisters. So the image you see on the screen right now, this image on the screen, before I go into the topic, is the foundation of Ethiopia's connection to Islam and the link of Christianity, right? It's just an abstract, brothers and sisters, right? Right, so let's read it. Yeha is a Bronze Age site near Aksum in Ethiopia, the largest archaeological site in the Horn of Africa, showing African contact with Saudi Arabia. Saba is the historical Sabian kingdom of Sheba. Yeha is precursor to the Ethiopic Aksumite Empire, established 8th century BC, includes temple, Ili resident Grat, Bial, Gibri, and rock-cut tombs, right? Servants of Baal, right? So the rock-cut tomb is nothing new in Ethiopia, like the rock-hewn church, right? This has been going on since the 8th century, right? Sabians were a Semite people, right? Semitic people, right? From an Arabian kingdom in western Yemen. The empire flourished from the 8th century BC to 275 AD, right, brothers and sisters? So that 275 AD, right? That's when Ethiopian converted to Christianity around that time, right? And the Sabian Empire fell around that very same time. Right? So the Ethiopians went across the sea and settled in Arabia. Right? This temple is known El Mak Temple. The Yemeni Q sound, it becomes an R. It becomes an R. Here's another image, right, brothers and sisters, on your screen. Further connect Ethiopia with Islam and their pre-existing practice. That's why in today's Ethiopia, half the country is Muslim and half Christians. And the practice is quite similar. Islam copied Ethiopia Christianity in certain areas, right? If you look at the screen, Almak, proper noun, right? Semitic, Sabian, right? And Ethiopic Geese. If you look at the two languages, similar, right? You can see it is very, very similar. The Semitic Sabian language, right? And the Ethiopic Geese language, very similar, right? A moon god once worshipped in Yemen, Saba, Sheba, Ethiopia, Aksum. Synonyms: Almak, Almuk. The Sabian capital was Marib, 120 kilometers east of Sana'a. As Safarian people, they built great irrigation works, castles, and temples. The British Museum called them the oldest and most important of the South Arabian kingdom, right? Sabian, right, in Arabic is Asaba Ayon, right? Asaba Ayon, brothers and sisters. So some brief abstract beef history. Yeah, like I always say, you can go do your own research and add to your knowledge, right? But let's get into the meat of the lesson, Shabbat lesson today, brothers and sisters, right? Alright, brothers and sisters, right? The pagan sources of Islam, right? Islam and their pagan connection, right? As Muhammad developed Islam, he borrowed from other religions present in the Northeast African region. These religions include Judaism, Christianity, Sabianism, Zoroastrianism, and forms of paganism. Judaism is the largest contributor to Islam, followed by Christianity, then followed by the various pagan religions and Muhammad's mines. These pagan borrowings constitute significant facets of Islam, and this article details some of these pagan contributions. Right? Paganism in Islam. Islamic theology has some of its roots in various pagan beliefs. Primary to Islam is its most holy shrine, the Kaaba. Right? The Kaaba. The Kaaba is now the most revered sanctuary of Islam. It is located in Mecca. Muslims throughout the world direct their prayers towards the Kaaba. Right? Physical shape. The Kaaba shape is somewhat cubical. Of note in the Kaaba structure is a black rock built into the wall in its eastern corner. The black rock's diameter is about 12 inches. It is reddish black in color and has red and yellow particles. The black rock is kissed during the perambulation, the circulation of the Muslim around the Kaaba. The Kaaba is about 50 feet high in the walls and are about 40 feet long. The facade contains the door, which starts at 7 feet off the ground and faces northeast to enter the Kaaba. A ladder must be used. Also built in the eastern corner is another stone called Lucky. This stone is only touched, not kissed. Known pagan history. Apart from Muslim myth, the little is really known about the history of the Kaaba. About 60 years before the Mashiach, the Roman historian Diodorus Siculus commented that there was in Arabia a temple greatly revered by the Arabs. It is probable that he had the Kaaba in mind. It was later mentioned to have existed in the 2nd century. Ptolemy, the geographer, mentioned in his work called it the Makoraba. Right? Makoraba. The Kaaba was a sanctuary dedicated to one or more pagan deities. The accounts of the campaigns of the Abraham note that it was a place of pagan worship in the 6th century. Information on the distribution of the office among the sons of Qusay showed that the worship of the sanctuary had developed into a regulated cult several generations before Muhammad. This was 7 generations before Muhammad. So this was going on before Muhammad. Right? On historian Hargronese said that sacred worship may have developed around the area because the Zamzam spring was found in this waterless place. Right? Pre-Islamic history tells us that many Arabian tribes were stone worshippers. This is also mentioned in Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 5, number 661, right, or page 661. The Old Testament even talks about Northeast pagan groups that worship stones. Muhammad incorporated the Kaaba's paganistic roots into Islam to give the Muslim a sense of identity, legitimacy, and uniqueness. He also wanted to ease the Arab strain of moving from paganism to Islam by continuing the practice of their fathers. Pagan gods and rituals. There were 360 idols around the Kaaba. The pilgrimages to the Kaaba were all pagan pilgrimages. The ritual processions around the Kaaba, right? The ritual processions around the Kaaba were part of pagan belief and custom. The white robes worn by the pilgrims were from pagan faiths. The veneration of the Kaaba and black stone are derived from pagan rituals and beliefs. Pagans call out the names of their pagan gods as they circle the Kaaba. Today, Muslim calls out Allah's name. Pagan ran between the nearby hills. Muhammad authorized Muslims to do that in the Quran and probably ran between the hills himself. The chief pagan god worshipped there was Hubal, who could be called the god of Mecca and of the Kaaba. Hubal is not mentioned in the Quran. The goddesses Allat, Al-Uzza, and Manat were also worshipped there and are mentioned in the Quran. It is thought that the Kaaba was originally set up for astral worship. Golden suns and moons are repeatedly mentioned as the votive gifts. Some pagans regarded the Kaaba as a temple devoted to the sun, moon, and 5 planets. The 5 planets, right? See, this is all about earth worship. This is where you get the earth worship from too, brothers and sisters. Worshiping the earth, worshiping the sun, worshiping the moon, worshiping the stars, worshiping the tree. Creation worship stem from these pagan practices in ancient times, brothers and sisters. Right? This is why the scripture said there is nothing new under the sun. What is seen taking place, been done before. You see, brothers and sisters. So we gotta wake up to this reality and factual truth, brothers and sisters, right? The black stone. The black stone played a prominent role in pagan worship. The pagans offered animal sacrifices there, but the idol of the black stone replaced the altar on the black stone. They smeared the blood of the sacrificed animal. Right? Quranic myth. Muhammad made up historical references for the Kaaba. Muhammad claimed that Abraham and Ishmael laid the foundation of the Kaaba. Quran 2:127. Muhammad claimed that God ordained the Kaaba as a sacred house. Quran 5:9-7. Muhammad also claimed that it was the first temple ever built for mankind. Quran 3:9-7. Only Muhammad claimed that it was a place built by Abraham. In looking in the Old Testament, we find no mention of Abraham traveling to Mecca to build a house of worship. First lie, right? Further, the late Taha Hussein, one of the most famous Egyptian professors of Arabic literature, said that the Islamic myth of Abraham building the Kaaba came into vogue just before the rise of Islam. He comments, "The case of this episode is very obvious because it is of recent date and came into vogue just before the rise of Islam. Islam exploited it for religious reasons." Quote in Mizar al-Islam by Anwar al-Yudi. Right? By Anwar al-Yundi. Right? Theological problems. What are the theological problems, brothers and sisters? Every man living in Mecca before and during Muhammad's life had some relationship with the Kaaba. If the Kaaba was the house of God, why did Muhammad order his followers to face Jerusalem? Muhammad's revelation in the Quran says that when Allah had Muhammad change prior direction, it was a test of the Muslim. This sounds like a lame excuse on Muhammad's part. What's the test? Face another direction? That does not appear to be such an incredible challenge. Probably the reader answer is that through his early contacts with Christians and Jews, Muhammad knew that their faith centered in Jerusalem, where monolithic Muhammad abhorred polytheistic worship. Consequently, he aligned himself with faith that he believed were from the true God. He selected Jerusalem as the direction of prayer. He hoped that the Jews would receive him as a prophet. About a year and a half after the migration to Medina, after the Jews had thoroughly rejected him, he turned the direction of prayer to Mecca, the center of pagan worship in the Arabian Peninsula. Quran 2:144. Just as he had compromised with the pagan idol worshippers in Mecca by sanctioning and worshipping the pagan goddesses Lat, Uzza, and Manat, so now he hoped to gain favor with the pagan Arab tribes that worship at the Kaaba in Mecca. Right? He authenticated the pagan focus of attention. After Muhammad took Mecca, he cleansed the Kaaba. Inside the Kaaba were many representations of the prophets. His men began to clean the Kaaba and wash out the representation. Muhammad placed his hands on the pictures of Yahusha and Mary and said, "Wash out all except what is below my hands." Again, Muhammad went against his own principles and sanctioned his definition of idolatry. Muhammad then sanctioned the pagan rituals concerning the Kaaba, kissing the black stone, touching the Kaaba, circling the structure, running between the two hills. Later, Umar said to the black stone, I know that you are a stone that neither helps nor hurts, and if the messenger of God had not kissed you, I would not kiss you. Sahih al-Burahari, volume 2, page 667. But then he kissed the stone like Umar. Many other Muslims follow the Prophet in their practice of veneration of a pagan idol. Before Muhammad, there was a group of people in Arabia who also abhor idolatry. They were known as the Hanafites. Even Hanafites saw that kissing the black stone was pagan idolatry. During one of the pre-Islamic Eids, or Eids, the Qurayshi, right? The Qurayshi were worshipping their idols, slaying, sacrificing, praying, and making circuits around the Kaaba, just as they did each year for this festival. Some Hanafites saw them and stood apart from them and said, by Yahuwah, our people have nothing left of the faith of Abraham. What is this stone that we should encircle it? It can neither hear nor speak, neither hurt nor help. Our people, look out for your souls, for by Yahuwah are you altogether wanted. The scripture talk about this, right? Your idols have feet, they cannot walk, ears, they cannot hear, eyes to see but can't see, hands but cannot touch nor lift. Right? Scripture say all these things, right? One of the Hanafites, right? One of the Hanafites was Obadallah, right? Later he embraced Islam. He immigrated to Abyssinia with other Muslims. Later he became a Christian. After his conversion, he said to his Muslim friends, we Christians see, but you are only blinking, that is, cannot see plainly. So why then does Muhammad kiss the black stone? Why did he incorporate paganism into his faith? There is even the Quranic story of Abraham, how he chided those who worship idols. Surah 6:21, and said it was sinful in God's sight. Yet here we have Muhammad walking around the Kaaba just like the pagans, kissing the stone just like the pagans. Even Umar knew it was empty and false, yet he followed Muhammad in kissing the stone. It cannot be denied that an entire pagan theology and ritual was adopted by Islam. After Muhammad had one of his convenient revelation, right? Convenient revelation, and made it religiously correct. Another Muslim myth concerning the Kaaba is that anyone who prays under the Kaaba's water pipe becomes as pure as on the day when his mother bore him. Muslims have a hard time accepting the Mashiach's atonement, but will allow for total forgiveness of sin by uttering a prayer under a spout. Right? Post-Muhammad history. In one of the early Muslim civil wars, AD 683, al-Zubair in Mecca was besieged by al-Hussein. Hussein's men used catapults and damaged the Kaaba. It looks like the torn bosom of mourning women. Zubair and his men pitched their tents next to the Kaaba, and conflagration caught the Kaaba on fire. The Kaaba was severely damaged and the black stone was split into 3 pieces. A short time later, al-Hadid conquered Mecca and killed Zubair. He modified the Kaaba structure. In 929, the Chromanetians invaded Mecca and carried off the black stone. 20 years later, it was returned. Another natural event, bad weather, have also caused the Kaaba to need repair. Muslims erroneously claim that God has protected the Quran from corruption, yet their God was not able to protect his sacred house. Right? Post-Muhammad Islamic mythology. Later, Muslim theologians invented a number of myths about Mecca and the Kaaba. One Islamic tradition is, according to the Ibn Abbas, Muhammad said the black stone came from the paradise at the time of its descent. It was whiter than milk, but that the sins of the children of Adam have caused it to be black by their touching it, that on the day of resurrection, when it will have two eyes by which it will see and know all those who touch it and kissed it, and when it will have a tongue to speak, it will give evidence in favor of those who touched and kissed it. Muslim writers also said that the Kaaba was first constructed in heaven 2,000 years before the creation of the world, where a model of it still remains. Adam erected the first Kaaba on earth exactly below the spot its perfect model occupies in heaven. 10,000 angels were appointed to guard Adam's Kaaba, but obviously they didn't do a good job. God then instructed Abraham to rebuild it. There are numbers of other myths about the Kaaba. Among them are the Mecca in the navel of the world, or the navel of the world, that the Kaaba was established in the creation of the world, destroyed during the flood, rebuilt by Abraham, that Gabriel provided the black stone. There are also legends about the Zamzam water from the nearby well. If you take a look at the screen, brothers and sisters, you will see an image of the Zamzam water well, right? Some Muslims say that there are references to the Kaaba in the Old Testament. Here are a few mistaken claims, right? One, Muslim hope that Genesis 35:4, 14 and 15 refer to the Kaaba, since Bethel, house of Elohim, and that the Jewish temple wasn't built until much later. But as the Bible shows, Bethel is a town in Palestine, Genesis chapter 12. Also, Yaakov built an altar, not a temple, to Elohim. Abraham also built an altar to Yahuwah in Genesis 12:7. Muslims claim that David in God's mentions the Kaaba in Psalm 84:6. If the Baka was a location, it was not known where it existed in the Bible, but a more correct interpretation taken in context of the whole Psalms is that since Baka means weeping, it means valley of tears. David in God's could be saying that he longs for the presence of Elohim, and that even through difficult times, Baka, Elohim will be with him and will turn his tears to joy. 3. Muslims also think that Isaiah 60:7, all the flocks of Kedar, refers to Abraham people worshipping at the Kaaba. Reading through Isaiah 60:7, shows that Kedar's flocks are going to be sacrificed on the altar. Are Muslims saying that Arabs are going to be human sacrifice? 4. Some Muslims think that since the New Jerusalem in the book of Revelation is cubic, it also resembles the Kaaba, and thus is a prophecy of the Kaaba. But the Kaaba is not a perfect cube, not even close. The structure is 50 feet high with a sloping roof. The shorter walls are 35 feet long, and the facade is 40 feet long. Right? Summary of the Islamic rites centered on the Kaaba. Every Muslim that makes the Hajj or Hijjah, every Muslim that returns between the hills, every Muslim that bestows a kiss on the black stone is performing pagan rituals founded on pagan superstitions sanctioned by Muhammad himself. Muslims have accused Christianity of incorporating paganism, and to an extent some exterior culture aspects have been. But paganism is an integral root of Islam. Paganism is part of its theology, history, ceremony, and veneration. Right? So I tell you, flee Christianity, brothers and sisters. Right? You think you're worshiping the Most, you're worshiping the devil. My references for this section are from the original Hughes Dictionary of Islam, not the recent one that has been sanitized by a Muslim publisher, the shorter NC of Islam, and the NC of Islam published by E. Jabril, and the Sources of Islam by Tisdale. More Islamic paganism. The night journey. The night journey describes Muhammad's ascent into heaven. Right? It is briefly mentioned in Surah 17:1 and described in Sahih al-Barahi in several of his volumes, notably in volume 1, Page 345. Muhammad's story parallels in Zoroastrian story. It is found in an old Pahlavi book known as the Book of Arta Viraf. The Zoroastrian story describes the journey of a saintly priest, Arta Viraf, who went into a trance and his spirit went up to the heavens under the guidance of an angel named Sarosh. He passed from one utopia, 7 heavens, to another until he reached the presence of Ormazd, the great deity of the whole universe. When Arata saw everything in heaven and that its inhabitants were very happy, Ormazd commanded him to return to earth as his messenger and to tell the people all that he saw and heard. Also, the Zoroastrians taught long before Islam there was a marvelous tree in paradise called Humaya, which corresponds very closely to the Sidra or Sidra, the Loti tree of Islam. Finally, there is another Zoroastrian work, the Zardashinama, which has a story of how Zoroaster himself ascended into the heavens and obtained permission to visit hell, where he found Hariman, the devil. All these stories are parallel in the Quran. No doubt Muhammad heard these stories and decided to put himself on a level with Zoroaster and others. So how we have Muhammad copying the Zoroastrian stories and claiming to have these experiences? Again, while Muslims claim that paganism influenced Christianity, we see that paganism is part of the core of Islamic faith and theology. Azel, the devil. The Muslim hadith, the devil has a certain name, Hazel or Azazel. Azazel, the name does not occur in the Quran. The name may come from Leviticus 16:8, 10:26. The scapegoat in Hebrew is Azazel. From another source, it means the demon of the desert. There are apocryphal Jewish books, Enoch and Apocalypse of Abraham, that mention Azazel. Islamic traditions, Hadith, developed their story. Muslims associate Azazel with the fallen angel Harut and Marut. Ibn Abbas tradition has the strongest Islamic reference, developing it as Satan's name before the fall of Adam. Here is Tisdale's view on it, taken from the sources of Islam. Muslims take the name of Azazel from the Jews, but put the Zazorian story behind the name. Muslims believe that Elohim created Azazel, who worshipped Elohim for 1,000 years while he was in the seventh hell. Then he descended a stage at a time, all while worshipping God. Finally, he reached the earth. Elsewhere, Muslim traditions say he stayed 3,000 years by the gate of paradise. With hostile intention against Adam and Eve, he was very jealous of them. Compare the above with the Zoroastrian account. Zoroastrian account. Ahriman, Azazel renamed in the abyss, there is commit hurt and injury and mischief and darkness. Ormazd knew of his existence, that's their god, right? Orman knew of his existence and plans. It went on like this for 3,000 years. The evil spirit was ignorant of Ormazd's existence, but eventually rising out of the pits, right? Saw Ormazd's light. Then Ahriman was filled with hostility and envy. He set out to destroy, right, the Sabaeans. Who were the Sabaeans, brothers and sisters? Why did Muhammad regard them as believers in the true Elohim? The Sabaeans are mentioned at least 3 times in the Quran, right? 1:2:62. Believers, Jews, Christians, and Sabaeans, whoever believes in God and the last day and does what Israel shall be rewarded by their Lord, the Adonai, they have nothing to fear or regret. Right? 2. Right? 5:69. Believers, Jews, Sabaeans, and Christians, whoever believes in God and the last day and does what is right shall have nothing to fear or to regret, right? 3:22:17. As for the true believers, the Jews, the Sabians, the Christians, and the pagans, right, or Magians, right? Magians and the pagans, God will judge them on the day of resurrection. God bears witness to all things. Although what is known about the Sabians is not comprehensive enough, has been written about them to determine a basic understanding of their practices and beliefs. Most of the writings are from Islamic sources. Some of the writers are Ibn Hazm in Fasal wa Milahal, Ibn al-Nadim in the Fihrist, Saharastiani in the Treaty on Sex, and Musadi in Muharrir al-Dhihab, right? Ibn Hazm writing in Fizal wa Malal identifies the people then known as Haranians as the Sabians mentioned in the Quran. Hazm writes that they honored the 7 planets and the 12 constellations. There are 5 times of prayer, the same times as the Muslim pray. They fast in Ramadan, they venerate and turn to the Kaaba in prayer. Hazm also says they also worship the stars and idols. Hazm further claims that Allah sent Abraham to turn them away from pagan worship, but Abraham didn't succeed. Comparing all the early writings of the Sabians, we find that they inhabited Syria and spread from there. They were definitely pagans, having a mixture of Babylonian and Hellenic religion. The prophets they professed to follow were Hermes and Haggadah-Diamon, right? Haggadah-Diamon, who they identified in Saharastiani times with Seth and Esdras, Old Testament Enoch. Gods who were worshipped were the gods of the seven weeks or 7 weekdays, the god of the jinn, the lord of the horror, the god who makes arrows fly, the god Tammuz, and the variation of the one previously mentioned, Hammam the prince, the father of the gods, the god North, the lord Fortune, etc. They also kept the Id of their own. Further, the Sabians made star worship a chief characteristic of their system, right? So did Islam get the 5 times a day prayer from the star worshipping Sabians? What about fasting during Ramadan from the Sabians? The Eid from the Sabians? It seems very odd to me that Muhammad, the man whose central doctrine was the oneness of God, would include pagan worship as those who were believers in the true Elohim, brothers and sisters. If Muhammad were truly a prophet, how could he have made such a big mistake? How did astral worshippers get included into Quran as those that worship the true Elohim? How could Muhammad's relation be in such error? It is noteworthy that just as Muhammad incorporated the pagan veneration of the Kaaba and the black stone into Islam, so he incorporated Sabian times of prayer, Eid, and fast into Islam. Once again, Muhammad didn't fully know the subject he was synthesizing into Islam. I have read nothing about their doctrine that could have led Muhammad to include them as followers of the one true Elohim he preached about. Perhaps he learned a small portion about their religion and believed it to be right. Little did he know that under that veneer of words lay many theological differences. Horus. The Quran mentioned Horus several times, right? 44:50, 52:20, 55:60, 56:20, 78:33. Who are, what are they? They are bashful virgins, fair as coral and ruby, dark-eyed youths, high-bosom maiden, big-breasted. In some, they are creatures put in paradise primarily for men's sexual pleasure. Each man will have at least 2 of them. That's what they believe. This concept is derived from the Zoroastrian sources. The Zoroastrian sources. In Zoroastrian writings, they are referred to as fairies. Fairy tales, little fairies, and stealing the tooth and all that crap. That's where it comes from. Hmm? Fairy godmothers, huh? All pagan, brothers. That's why I tell you, flee religion and all pagan worship that this wicked Babylonian system give you. And for you, children of Yahshua, who are involved in these things, I'm telling you, flee, 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 run to the hills, run back to the Most High, Yahuwah and Yahusha's name, and come back to these laws, commandments, and statutes. Hmm? Hmm? Let me read that over again. This concept is derived from the Zoroastrian sources. In Zoroastrian's writings, they are referred to as fairies, spirits in bright array and beautiful to captivate the heart of man. The name Horus comes from Palavasors, as does the Islamic jinn or genie. Right? The conclusion of the matter, brothers and sisters, it is not difficult to see how Muhammad heard various sacred religious stories and incorporate them into Islam. Perhaps he thought that parts of those religions contained truth, so he adopted what he thought to be correct. But nevertheless, part of the foundation of Islam is paganism, brothers and sisters, right? So I hope you understand fully what you're involving yourself in. Stiff-necked Yahshua, so-called black people, descendant of ancient Yahshua of scriptures, and descendant of Hebrew slave or foreparents, brothers and sisters, right? Religion is very dangerous, brothers and sisters. The Most High did not give us religion. He gave us laws, commandments, and statutes to adhere to. It is to save your soul and your life, brothers and sisters. These commandments are not burdensome. It's not. The laws of this land is burdensome and is oppressive, but you faithfully follow it. Right? But why won't you follow the commandments of the Most High, knowing that He can destroy both body and soul, brothers and sisters? Huh? Come back to Him, brothers and sisters. Flee religion and come back to these laws, commandments, and statutes. Right? On that note, brothers and sisters, Baruch Yahuwah, Kuzubahu Baruch, Yahushua Mashiach. Shana, Shana, Vishna. Bless the love and shalom.